Okay, so the vertebrae are like one of the most difficult, not difficult, most overwhelming structures of the body is to like learn all the structures on, just because it's so small and there's so many of them. And I think the hardest part is actually how the book or the atlas or whatever organizes them, because it's just by alphabetical order, not like how you would actually view it. So I just want to go through it how like I picture it. So you have your body, which is just the big chunk in the back. And then to me, I think that this looks like a moose. This one looks like a giraffe. And I think this one looks like an elephant. You got the ears, the trunk. I don't know, however you want to think about it. So that being said, this is the body. This is the imaginary face or whatever. I'm gonna get a pen real quick. So like face. And so what holds like the body to the face is called your pedicle. And it's this little bridge part right here. So that's your pedicle. And then we have our spinous process, which is this part in the front. And when you feel your back and you feel your spine, these are what you're feeling. These are your spinous processes. So spinous process, that's what helps me remember. And then what holds your spinous process to, I don't know the rest of it, I don't know what to call it, is your lamina. And it is right there. And I want to point something out in this view real quick before I switch to the next view. But this is what it looks like in a posterior view. So if you notice, there you have the blue, and then you have like a strip of white, and then you have the blue. So this is when they're asking for a lamina. It's going to look like this. And then we have something called the vertebral arch. And the vertebral arch is really just a combination of your pedicle and your lamina. And the reason I pointed out what the lamina looks like in the posterior view is because your vertebral arch looks very similar, and you can't tell if your pedicles are highlighted or not. So how I can tell the difference is it's all blue right here. Whereas, so this is the vertebral arch, it's all blue. Whereas in the lamina, there was that strip of white. So that is something that is an easy giveaway, I guess. So then we have our articular faucets and articular processes. Some people really struggle with these. This is how I remember it. So your faucets are going to be this flat area. It's going to be a flat, smooth surface. So I like looking at faucets from the posterior view. So if you look, there are these smooth areas. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And then your processes are the area around it. So when I see pictures like this and they're asking like identify the structure, I look to see if the highlighted part is smooth or if it's the area around the smooth. If it's the area around the smooth, it's a process. And then after that, you just have to decide if this is a superior or inferior. What I'm showing you right now is a superior view, but your inferior faucets, you can only see them. They all have inferior articular faucets. You just can't see it how they are showing their cervical right now, but they're back there. And then your inferior process is yet again just around that smooth area. Excuse me. So those are your articular faucets. And then we have our intervertebral structures. So inter means between, and then vertebral is just referencing that it's on the vertebrae. So the first thing we have is called our inferior intervertebral notch. So that is right there. You can see as well right down there. And then you also have a superior intervertebral notch, and that is right there. And then when you put them together, they make this hole right here. That is called your intervertebral foramen. That's just the hole when you put them together. Some people, including myself, find it really hard or like kind of confusing. When you have these together, you want to say that this is the inferior intervertebral notch because it's on the bottom side of your little hole that you made. So I was tutoring somebody this week, and she's like, oh, I'm just going to forget that the second one exists. So she only looks at the top one because it's superior here, and the other one would be inferior. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me, and it helps me. So hopefully it helps somebody out there. And then, one of the easiest things is this giant hole. It's called the vertebral foramen. Yeah, so that's just the giant hole in the middle. So those are all of the features that are on all the vertebrae. And then on your cervical vertebrae, you have a few that are different. The first one is literally your first vertebrae. It's like right at the base of your skull, and it's called the atlas. So your head sits on the atlas. Some features on this is you have your transverse foramen. So they're just the holes that are on the sides. And then we have our atlas sits on top of our axis. So this is our axis, and you can tell it's the axis because it has this like pointy up thing. I don't know how to explain it besides the pointy up thing. It's called your dens, D-E-N-S. And so the atlas sits on the axis, and because it has this dens, it can spin. That's how you can tilt your head and move your head. It's because of these odd-shaped vertebrae, just how they are able to function. You can also see that this has the transverse foramen as well. And then the other thing that the axis has is called this bifid spinous process. And I kind of have a funny story that helps me remember it, but I just think of the axis as this little tiny like baby cervical vertebrae that's like growing up. He's like really wanting to be an adult vertebrae, but he's just not quite there, but he's really trying. Anyway, so he's creating this spinous process, but it isn't completely formed yet. So you can still kind of see how this side, it has a peak right there, and that side has a peak. So you can still see that there's two of them. And so I'm pretty sure means like two, right? And then fid, I don't know what that means on the science process, but that's how I remember them. So yeah, that is the vertebrae. I hope that helps and adds clarity. Yeah, have a great night.